Alright guys, howdy friends, welcome back. So another episode today. So this one is in a response from a comment I got from my first YouTube video. And essentially this person asked, how can you build muscle? As he was like, hey, yo, I am a skinny guy and I need tips on how to build muscle. And I'm like, cool, let's do this. So first thing I would say is making sure, well, there's like four segments here, four things that you should definitely know about, and I'll individually go through each one and unpack it a little bit more as we go. So the first one is make sure that you are being well fed and well fueled. Next thing is making sure that you are prioritizing and protecting your sleep. So the quality versus the quantity there. And then making sure you are training hard and intentionally with your training. And lastly, giving it time, adaptation and time. Respecting that, allowing that to take its place. So diving into that a little bit more here. So first things first is that you're going to train. Making sure that you are training intentionally and hard. So I know that when it comes to the word exercise, everyone likes to define it in their own way and subject to it whatever way they want to. And so when you think of exercise, think of it like, say like, yes, there's exercises that it's a very ambiguous or not ambiguous, but like ubiquitous term that you can use. Like there's like exercises that you do when you were doing like a math problem, exercise that you were doing in a gym setting. And so when you were training, when it comes to resistance training, making sure that you were training in a way that is in alignment and that facilitates that main goal, that outcome that you were trying to achieve. So if the main intention is muscle growth, muscle hypertrophy, things like that, making sure that you are training in a way that promotes that. So making sure that you are controlling the tempo of your lifts, controlling the eccentrics, making sure you are training in a little bit more of that higher rep ranges, like roughly where people like to hang out is like around anywhere between like 8 to 12. But nice thing is that there isn't like a set rep range, the rep range continuum of how people are like, hey, go lower reps because it'll help with more power, explosiveness, middle range for hypertrophy, higher range for endurance. But nice thing that we learned is that hypertrophy can occur at all ranges as long as you are training hard enough. So then training hard with intentionality and being strategic with it matters a lot. So there's that part, and making sure you're slowing down on the eccentric portion as like that lowering of like a bicep curl or lowering down to a squat, that lengthening of the muscle. That's what I'm talking about. And then after the whole training side of stuff, making sure you are well fed. So making sure you're getting enough calories in, eating calorically dense foods, making sure that you're getting in a lot of protein, right? Protein, fibers, carbs, fats, all those type of things. But definitely make sure that you have all the building blocks that you need so then you can sufficiently support your training. That way you can get the adaptation that you want from a recovery standpoint and also from a muscle building standpoint. So protein wise, a really good rule of thumb is 1 gram per pound of protein per body weight. So that, of course, if you are not in that range, you can start wherever you are and then slowly build up. There's different ranges for, like, if you want to get into more specific details, but just that 1 gram per pound is a solid like rule of thumb, easy for people to remember, to be honestly, and that works across everybody. And then the need of that changes, of course, as I can dive into in more future episodes. Next thing is sleeping. So making sure that you are prioritizing and protecting your sleep, because your muscles are not being built in the gym. That is where stress and the stimulus is being applied to them for them to get damaged, ripped apart, all that stuff. And then where the actual muscle growth happens is in your sleep. It's through the stimulus, it's through the building blocks you get from the food, the nutrients that you just ingested into you throughout the day. And then while you are sleeping, as you are going through those different sleep stages, the cycles, there's 4 of them, and making sure you're going through each one of them, especially during like your deep sleep. During deep sleep, it's like stage 3, and that is where a lot of the physiological adaptations are occurring. Your tendons, your ligaments, your connective tissues, your muscles, that's where a lot of the repairing and the growth happens, right? From all that damage and stimulus and stress that you introduce to your body throughout the day, throughout that training session, and while you're sleeping, that is where everything is getting solidified, and so then you can build and then go from there. And then the next thing is, like, if you're looking at between your quality and quantity, like how much sleep should you should be getting, sleep should always be your number one thing, right? Because this is where you are also able to produce more of those like hormonal factors to help influence the stuff, how you can down regulate so your system isn't so stressed and focusing on other areas. It can actually get into doing the thing that you want it to do. Like you can work with your physiology to support you, and it's not just muscle building. It's a way for you to recover mentally as well cognitively, your nervous system, and then just you psychologically, mentally, and emotionally to then be able to perform throughout the day in all of the other areas and cups that you have. So how much sleep should you be getting? As much as you can, honestly. So whatever your time window is, that your time frame of how much sleep that you have and how much sleep that can you give. So making sure that you are forward thinking and backwards planning. So it's like, hey, if I know that I gotta get up at 6 a.m., then I gotta crank the clock back by 8 hours and then just kind of work my way back. It's like, okay, crank it back so it's like 10 o'clock. Oh, I need to start my sleeping routine and kind of like start winding down at around 9 o'clock to make sure I'm in bed by like 10. And then it does take a little bit of time for you to fall asleep. And then making sure that you aren't doing things that's so stimulating or anything like that that's going to rev you up. You want to start revving down. So how much sleep really depends on what you got, but anywhere between 7 to 9 hours would be extremely optimal. But I understand that's not feasible for everybody. So even if you have to, even if you're like hanging around the 4 or 5, squeezing an extra 30 minutes, just kind of like increasing your margins there. And however way you can do that, look at what you do before you go to sleep. How can you start revving down, making sure your environment is optimal for you or like supports you for sleeping. Start dimming things down earlier. Start reducing some of that stimulating inputs. Make your home colder. Do like stuff like that. Stop looking at so much screens. Find ways to calm yourself down to get into sleeping, right? And then you can slowly increase your hours and time from them. Just because you're laying in bed 8 hours doesn't mean you're sleeping for 8 hours. That's a big one there too. I can dive into that more in a future episode. And then next thing is you just have to give it time, like adaptation and time. Adaptation takes time, and so you got to give it the respect it needs. Like you got to pay the rent, you got to pay the fee, the entrance fee every single day, do the maintenance work, and then doing all of these things, trying to hit as many check marks as you can, or like the boxes, and doing that consistently over and over and over, as frequently and consistently as possible, stringing them all together, and then just giving it time. And you may not see much results after a week, but then after a month, after a year, after 10 years, repeatedly doing the same thing that you know works, watch what happens. So guys, that's a quick snapshot on how to build muscle from a nutrition standpoint, from a sleep optimization standpoint, from a training hard standpoint, and then lastly, it's just that virtue of patience, of just giving it time and allowing your body to actually adapt and do its thing. If you have any other questions, please drop them in the comments, and I'll do more videos like this to help respond to them and give you guys more information. And I'll go into each one of these a little bit deeper in future episodes. But lastly, thank you again for watching, listening. If it's through YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I thank you so much. Please hit that subscribe button so you always get notifications when new episodes come out. And please leave a rating if you did like this. It really does help me. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye, my friends.